Good evening. It's your baby boomer Kitty Lane from the Peninsula in Virginia. Back with another Create and Relate. And I am still working. I am into the work. I'm confusing myself, I can tell you that much. I don't know if it's a refusal to put on the glasses or just old eyes. I don't know. But I put everything down for a little while today. I put the puzzle together for a little bit. And I spent some time with my girls and my little boy. We had an eventful afternoon. We had an eventful first day of school. I don't know if I told you earlier or not, but we had one child get off the bus and the other child was misplaced. You guys have seen my grandchildren. And don't get me wrong, I think all people are beautiful, first of all. I really do. But every now and then you run into that little batch that is like phenomenally beautiful. My granddaughter, upon birth, they grade them when they're born. And she was perfect. And all of my children got 9s. Even my oldest daughter, who was born with a low birth temperature, she was blue and green, and she had hair from her eyebrows back. But she had strong lungs. She was breathing exceptionally well. She was loud as all get out. And of course the coloration came within like a few minutes. It was not lack of oxygen, which they initially thought at birth. It was just her. It wasn't bruising. It wasn't lack of oxygen. It was just her. But they had to consider the fact that I was only 6 centimeters and thick, and she was not willing to stay. She was like, no. I've had it in here. I want out there. So they still gave her a 9. And that was where, of course, I learned about the grading system that they give them. And then, of course, my 2 boys were born 17 months apart. One in 86, one in 88. And they both got 9s. And my baby girl, bless her heart, everybody kept telling me, you got big babies. And when it came to her, the doctor was saying, you've had all of your babies natural. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to go with the cesarean on this one. This baby's larger than your other babies. And Jennifer said, that's not going to happen. I tell you what, you're going to have to catch me first. And she made her appearance. But it was so funny. I didn't have anyone with me in the delivery room. No family members. Nobody except the midwife and the nurse. And my doctor had assured me that he was going to be there. But it just so happened that his wife was pregnant at the same time. And she and I were in the same hospital, different delivery rooms, having babies. So I understood the fact that he couldn't be there because he wanted to be there for the birth of his own. And it was there first. So I completely understood that. I was happy that the midwife I had dealt with her sporadically throughout my pregnancy with Nikki, so I was familiar with her. But there was so many, there was so much wrong information these people gave me about my babies. The first one, they told me to expect at least a 12-pounder. So I'm like, Jesus. You take the wheel, Lord, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this. But she was 8 pounds 4 ounces. And they also told me that she was going to be a boy. And her nickname is Nikki. She's definitely not a boy. And then with my first son, Melvin, they were talking 12 pounds again. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe a 10-pounder. Because they actually said 10.5 pounds with him. And I'm like, okay, maybe a 9.5 to 10-pounder. And he was 8 pounds 10 3/4 ounces. So then when Christopher came along, they were saying that he was going to be about 10 to 11 pounds. So I'm like, oh, okay, another 8-pound baby, I can handle that. And he was actually 7 pounds 15 ounces. So by the time Jennifer came along, which was the very end of 1989, by this time they have updated equipment. They can give you, they can project birth weights a little more accurately. They can tell you the sex better. And of course they told me she was a girl. And they said that she was going to be at least 10 pounds. So here again, going off of everything I had been through, I'm expecting maybe around 8 pounds. I'll give her 8.5. Y'all, she was 9.5 pounds. Yes. And they were all delivered naturally. And it was experiences, but all of them got a grade 9. When my granddaughter was born, she was given, they wanted to give her an 8 based on complications they had with the mom, but when she came out, she was crying. She was the perfect color, perfect temperature, everything, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with the baby. She cried right away, and everything had color. They were like, well, she looks to be about a month and a half to 2 months old already, and she was 6 pounds. But she's beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful. Oh my God. And they gave her a 10. I don't know what they gave Pete. I was there at the beginning of the labor. And at the time, I was taking care of my mother as well. And I had to go get my mom something to eat. I was torn between the hospital and getting home to take care of my mom, and I was somewhere everywhere. And then I sat at the hospital for a while, and I decided to go get my mom something to eat and check on her, make sure she was straight. And then I was coming back to the hospital. Well, when I was in the drive-through line, got my mom a fish sandwich from Captain D's, my daughter called and said, I need you to come. I'm like, okay, let me drop the food off and I'll be right there. So I dropped the food off, talked real fast to mom, got everything situated. It was one of her better days. She had been up, and got in my car and started to the hospital. And the policeman pulled up beside me. Fortunately, it was one that I knew. He was like, look, you have run every stop sign. from your house to here. We were at a signal light. And he says, I need to know what the rush is. And I told him my daughter was having a baby in Norfolk. He turned on his sirens and his lights and said, follow me. Asked me which tunnel I was taking. I told him the down, because we have several tunnel systems over here. And I told him I was taking the downtown tunnel. And he escorted me all the way to the hospital. And then when I got out, I requested wheelchair service to labor and delivery. And the gentleman that was at the desk did not want to give me a wheelchair. So I struggled to get to the delivery room. The delivery room. And y'all, I struggle. I struggle. I have asthma as well. So, and at this time, that was close to my heaviest weight. And I was struggling to get there. And mind you, I still had the arthritis. I still had the cardiomyopathy going on. I had a lot medically going on, and it was a strain to try to get there. And I kept having to stop and catch my breath. And got my inhaler in my hand, and you're not supposed to use it but so many times within a certain amount of time. And I'm trying, and it was so bad that a nurse came by me and said to me, what's wrong? I need you to stop. And I told her I can't. I said, my daughter's having a baby and I'm trying to get to her. What room is she in? I told her what room she was in. And y'all, when I walked into the room, just as I walked into the room, I heard the baby cry, and EMT was there for me. I had to have a breathing treatment, and I was sitting there, and it was at the point that I was trembling, and I'm crying, and I'm trembling, and they're like, calm down, Grandma, and, why are you so emotional? It's okay. Mom is fine, the baby's fine. I'm like, but I missed it. You have to understand, like I said, when I had my first, my grandmother went with me to the hospital. But me and my big mouth happened to mention, while the nurse was in the room, that my grandmother had just gotten out of the hospital the day before I went in, and she was in for a heart attack. So they would not allow her to stay in the room, to which I protested to no avail. So my grandmother gave me her little nugget. She said, look, it's gonna hurt. But all that screaming and hollering that you're hearing, there's no need for it. Because it's not going to take the pain away. And I knew when my grandmother talked to me like that, she was serious. She said, I'm going to be in the waiting room and I don't want to hear you out there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, Catherine. As I told you, I was named after my grandmother. So, I didn't scream. But, when I had my two sons and my last daughter, my mom was there. My mom was there, right by my side with each one of them. When I had Melvin, the first labor pain that hit was at 4 o'clock the previous afternoon. I had him at 3:52 the next day, 8 minutes short of it being 24 hours. And with Christopher, I forgot how long I stayed in labor. It was really a toss-up because having 2 kids prior, I had never experienced my water breaking. The doctors always had to do that at the hospital. And when I had Christopher, my water broke. And it was scary because it had never happened before. So I don't know how long I stayed in labor with him, but it wasn't very long. Of course, when you're laying there on that bed, it seems like forever. And with Jennifer, I went into labor at 7:30 the evening prior, but the pains were like between 15 and 10 minutes apart. I say it backwards because, of course, when you get down to 5 minutes is when it's time to jet. But being that that was my fourth child, anything under 10 minutes was time for me to jet, because it could have been any moment from there. And I had an appointment. I had a non-stress test appointment, and one of the workers from the medical facility that I was going to picked me up to take me to my appointment. And the reason I had arranged a ride with her was because my mother had just had surgery. My birthday is December 2nd, and that was the day that my mother had surgery. So, of course, she gets home from the hospital, and her wound is such that she did not have a bikini, I think they call it a bilateral incision. And my mother had a large fupa also, nowhere near the size of mine, but it was still, kind of large. And they didn't want to just close it up and risk it stretching stitches. So they left it open and packed it. So the nurse had to come in every day. And she taught me how to handle it. But anyway, when I went in for the non-stress test, I was in labor. And I was telling the lady that took me, Miss Hyatt, that I was in labor. And it was snowing. The roads were icy. We watched cars spinning out all around us. I was nervous because I'd never ridden with this woman before. But when we got to the medical facility, this lady got out of her car and left me. And I'm sitting there thinking, maybe she went to get a wheelchair or something. I told her I was in labor. And after sitting there for about 15 minutes, I realized she wasn't coming back. See, all I got out was snow and ice on the ground, and literally had to crawl to the building. I was in active labor. And when I got inside, I'm crawling across the floor, the waiting room floor. And the nurses saw me and they're like, "Oh my God, what is going on? Why are you doing this?" And I'm telling them I'm in labor. I am in labor. And they're like, "Well, why didn't you go to?" I said, "Because Miss Hyatt brought me here." This is the kicker. The hospital was right next door. And I mean, they shared a parking lot. This medical facility and the hospital right next door. She could have dropped me off at the hospital, y'all, but she didn't. She didn't. But another lady there who had taken to me, who took me under her wing, actually, went and got her car. And they kept saying her name was Jennifer also. They kept saying to her, "Jenny, you can't do that. You'll be held liable if anything happens." And Jenny said, "I don't care. This woman is in labor and she needs to be at the hospital and not here." And she drove me in her little SUV right across the parking lot to the hospital. So when I arrived at the hospital, I think it was like right at 10 o'clock. They got me up to the labor room about 10:10. Got me situated because they were moving really fast. And the doctor came in and he says, "Do you need anything for pain?" It was the worst pain I'd ever been in. I had never in my life. And in my other 3 pregnancies, I had never had that much pain. And I told him that it was extremely painful. So they set up to give me an epidural. And just as he told me, okay, he explained everything to me. He says, "Okay, Now it's time for you to sit up. And as soon as he said the word up, I had a labor pain to hit so hard that I actually levitated. My mother said she had never seen anything like it. And he says, well, let me check before we stick this needle in your back. And I guess that was Jennifer's way of saying, no, Mom, we're not going to do needles. And, we're not doing the whole waiting thing. And So I delivered a healthy 9-pound, 8-ounce girl. And she was absolutely beautiful. Although she did get stuck on the way out. And I told them, no forceps. No forceps, please. They were like, we have to do something. Okay, I'll just push harder. But no forceps, please. So they honored my request. And like I said, I had a healthy baby girl. All of this leads to my grandchildren. All of them, by word of the doctors and nurses at the hospital, both of them rather, were perfect. And as they grow up, it's just like they're exceptionally smart. And they've kind of been guarded. They do go to regular school, but it's like they've been taken to school, and picked up. And even when my grandson caught the bus when he went to pre-K, somebody was like right there when he got on the bus, right there when he got off the bus. His bus driver was absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, she and I still keep in contact. And that's just how it's been. Well, because of a medical condition, my granddaughter had to go to summer school that same year Pete was in pre-K, and she had to catch the bus that summer. The first day of school that afternoon, the bus used to pick her up at the house and drop her off at the house. When it was time for the bus to drop her off, I have no grandchild. I'm frustrated. I'm confused. But when I'm faced with adversity, the first thing I do is get calm. So in me getting calm, I was able to think of the numbers I needed to call, and I called people, and we're riding around. Well, we're going back and forth on how to find my grandbaby. Eventually, we found out that she was on the wrong bus, and instead of the bus taking her back to the school, they were going to bring her to the house, which they did. So we were able to nip that panic in the bud right then. We got names and all that good stuff, so that wouldn't happen again. They knew who they were looking for and where she went. Well, today, we had already warned the kids before they went to school, look, this is your first year of catching the bus to and from school. So Pete, being 6, the younger, going into first grade, was given the task of helping his older sister, Destiny, who's 9. But what I didn't tell you is that Destiny is autistic. She's brilliant. She just learns differently. When they let the students out, they directed Destiny to the bus. And they put Pete on the wrong bus. Destiny's looking for her brother. Pete's looking for his sister. When the bus arrived here in the neighborhood, Destiny got off of the bus and there was no Pete. Now, do you remember when I told you in the face of adversity, Grandma gets really calm and I start thinking, what do we need to do? Well, Auntie and Mama don't think like that. Auntie and Mama were ready to rename the city of Hampton. And I understand because, like I said, we've been very guarded with these kids. Anytime we go anywhere, they can just get through eating barbecue chicken and have barbecue sauce all over their face, stains, everything, which we don't take them out like that. But I'm just saying, they don't have to be fresh out of the shower, fresh hairdos, fresh clothing. They're just, to us, they're regular kids. But we hear the comments that other people make, and they're like, oh my God, they're cute. Oh my God, they are so beautiful. Oh my God. And it's not the typical, you have a cute little girl, you have a cute little boy. I have seen kids that, and I understand, from that perspective, that have just been showstoppers. And I've been blessed to have 2 grandchildren like that. So when they come up missing like that, as calm as I am on the outside, on the inside, I'm a little bit ready to go to war. And it's not because they're so beautiful, which they are, but it's because they're my grandkids. They're my grandkids. To give you a little history of where I live, a few years ago, a father and an uncle walked into a Walmart where the mom and the kids were shopping, took the kids out of the basket and walked out of the door. A few years ago, the little boy came up missing. If I'm not mistaken, he was 2. It was Christmas when he came up missing. The acting father didn't report it until January. And a little more than a year later, they found the little boy. That's in the city where I live. The Walmart is the Walmart where I shop. So when we don't see our kids as calm as I am on the outside, you better believe Grandma is ready to go to war. And I understand that this is not the only place this goes. The kids that were picked up in Walmart were found and they were safe. Couldn't say the same thing for little Cody. No. To go back even further, don't remember the exact year. It was between 2002 and 2004. I want to say it was 2004. I do, because I think it was the year my son graduated as opposed to the year my daughter graduated. But at any rate, I birthed 4 children. One passed from sudden infant death syndrome, which they call SIDS, or crib death. And, but I raised 35. One of the ones that I raised had a son. And sometimes he would come over to the house. I mean, this is after graduating and all that good stuff. But he would still come and visit. And he'd bring his son, and if the fellas wanted to go out walking or whatever, I would keep the baby. And lots of times we would go in the room and lay down and take a nap. So that's what he knew about Big Mama. Just, we getting ready to go lay down and take a nap. Well, the father, and I'm condensing all of this. It's a lot to it that I can't and won't go into. But ultimately, the father's sister was keeping the baby. And then there were reports of him being missing. And when they found him, he had been severely beaten and burned, chemical burns. And by his auntie and her boyfriend. And the boyfriend's mother was also convicted. All 3 of them were convicted. So it's like having gone through that once, because that was home, not close to home, that was home. Having gone through that, and then when the kids are not where they're supposed to be, it's scary. So yes, I had to put the crocheting down for a while, because I had to recollect me. I had to get me back in order. And then when I was able, I turned my TV back on, and I looked at my YouTube sisters, and I haven't looked at any of the brothers today. I just looked at a few sisters and looked at Auntie Maureen. Speaking of Auntie Maureen, my crochet story, she's having her August giveaway. It's only until the 31st. So you might want to jump on over to my crochet story if you want to get involved. I will put, I'll put the info in the description box. But yeah. Also, guys, please keep Jennifer of Cinnamon Stitches and Kayla of Llama Mama Kayla in your prayers. They're both going through. I am happy that Lisa of Happy to Hook Crochet has or had a good turnout, for her craft fair. She just went through 3 days of a craft fair this past weekend and did well. Kudos to you, Lisa. I also found out that she too is a Dallas Cowboy fan, and y'all know how I feel about the Cowboys. Am I a Cowboy fan? All day, every day, twice on Sunday, and triple time in the off season. Yes, baby. That is me. I know y'all have heard the story about the cowboy cap. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, in me putting everything down for the day, I have not added the border to the green and yellow blanket, but that's cool. It's not like I don't have time. I know I had to shut everything down for a reason. And I'm cool with that. You know, sometimes I have to shut things down and I will secretly beat myself up for it. You know, if I hadn't done this way, or if I could have put my feelings aside long enough to do this. Not even going there with this one. No. No, but it's all good. It is all good. Excuse me. That might not be the camera. I'm just saying. Yes, I did sleep late this morning, but after all that excitement, I did not tell you all, but prior to yesterday, I think it was Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever day it was that I did the green, when I started the green and white blanket, I had been up for 27 hours. But every time I say I'm going to do a 24-hour challenge, I can't. In case I can't come back to you because I'm saying that I need to free up some storage space, I'm going to tell you guys, hit that reflection, say I love you, and know that I love you too. But in case I can come back, just hold tight and let's see. I love you guys just in case.